Speaking to farmers in Pennsylvania today, Trump laid out another part of his economic agenda, saying he would put a 200% tariff on John Deere imports if the company moves production to Mexico as planned.
It's hurting our farmers. It's hurting our manufacturing. I just noticed behind me John Deere tractors. I know a lot about John Deere. I love the company. But as you know, they've announced a few days ago that they're going to move a lot of their manufacturing business to Mexico. I'm just notifying John Deere right now. If you do that, we're putting a 200% tariff on everything that you want to sell into the United States.
A storm has been brewing across the heartlands of America and the fields of Mexico. One that has now erupted into what could be described as the most dangerous shutdown in modern food history. At the center of this upheaval is John Deere, the iconic agricultural equipment manufacturer whose practices have sparked a rebellion that spans borders, industries, and dinner tables. Thousands of tractors sit sidelined, borders have been weaponized, and the company remains eerily silent. This isn't just about broken machines, it's a fight for control, survival, and the future of food production. From Iowa to Sonora, farmers are taking a stand, and the consequences are already spiraling. What triggered this crisis? Who let it escalate? And what happens when food production grinds to a halt? The answers? 3 weeks ago, what Mexican customs officials called enhanced agricultural equipment inspection protocols was in reality a calculated blockade targeting John Deere. At the Laredo and Nogales border crossings, over 140 John Deere tractors and harvesting machines were halted, left to bake under the sun. At the same time, competitors like Case IIH and Kubota faced minimal delays. This wasn't routine bureaucracy, it was a surgical strike, timed to disrupt Mexico's critical planting season, just weeks away. Thousands of acres awaited tilling, fertilizing, and seeding, but the machinery to make it happen was locked in limbo. For farmers who had prepaid for equipment, this was more than an inconvenience, it was catastrophic. In Sinaloa, Eduardo Vasquez stared at 5,000 acres of unplanted land, his fully paid tractor just 10 meters away, unreachable across the border. On the U.S. side, John Deere's logistics team scrambled for answers while Mexican officials offered vague explanations about national standards, compliance, and safety. But the message was clear. John Deere was no longer welcome without consequences. This wasn't a random trade hiccup. It was the culmination of grievances that had been festering for over a decade, and Mexico had chosen its moment to strike. John Deere's reputation didn't collapse overnight. It eroded with every breakdown, every locked diagnostic screen, every exorbitant repair bill. His biggest challenge? The right to repair his own farming equipment when it breaks. This is a problem that is affecting every class of electronic device, from your washing machine to your, car, to me with my combines and tractors. Wilson is among hundreds of farmers across the country named in class action lawsuits against John Deere. They're accusing the company of blocking farmers and everyday mechanics from fixing equipment without going through John Deere dealers. Farmers across North America have long relied on Deere's advanced machinery, but that brilliance came with a leash. Proprietary software locked every system from transmissions to GPS, requiring authorized technicians for even minor repairs. A $50 sensor could cost $500 to unlock, plus thousands in travel and labor fees. In remote regions, delays stretched into weeks, turning minor malfunctions into devastating losses. Crops wilted, yields plummeted, and bills piled up. In rural Mexico, the impact was even more severe. Over 300 farm failures in 5 years were linked to repair costs and equipment downtime. In one case, a 120-mile tow and a locked software screen cost a farmer his entire season. Farmers felt helpless, forced to wait for overworked, overpriced dealers or pay exorbitant fees. What stung most wasn't just the cost, it was the loss of autonomy. Farmers, skilled and resourceful, were barred from fixing their equipment even when they had the parts and know-how. Internal documents later leaked revealed this was no accident. John Deere had built a system designed to maximize repair revenue, not uptime. The company's grip on parts and services was a deliberate strategy, and farmers were paying the price, literally and figuratively. The Mexican blockade sent shockwaves through the markets. On the day inspections began, John Deere's stock opened flat, but, it plummeted by midday, losing 27% of its market value by week's end. That's a $14 billion evaporation, the sharpest drop in the company's 185-year history. Wall Street analysts were honestly baffled. Border delays alone couldn't explain the collapse. But this wasn't just a logistics issue. It was the unmasking of a fragile business model. Mexico accounts for over $1 billion in Deere's annual equipment sales and $2 billion in parts and service revenue. Every single day the disruption just piled up costs, carrying fees, late penalties and inventory backlogs in Saltillo, Moline and Waterloo. What was once a strength, precision specialization, became a liability. Credit agencies such as Moody's and S&P placed Deere on a negative watch, citing its exposure to market concentration and potential political backlash. Bonds slid, borrowing costs soared, and liquidity projections were slashed. Deere was burning through $370 million a week, a bleed it couldn't sustain. Investors felt betrayed. A company that had positioned itself as indispensable was now exposed as vulnerable, its reliance on repair revenue proving to be a fatal flaw. For farmers like Michael Peterson, a Kansas wheat grower, loyalty to John Deere just evaporated with a single $500 invoice to clear a 5-minute diagnostic code. The green and yellow logo, once a symbol of reliability and pride, now represented control and exploitation. Peterson wasn't alone. In Nebraska, the state's largest agricultural cooperative suspended all Deere purchases, redirecting $40 million to competitors like Case IH and New Holland. Their statement was blunt: "We support companies that support farmers." The American Farm Bureau Federation, representing 6 million families, issued a rare rebuke, calling for global right to repair laws and praising Mexico's stance. This wasn't just a financial hit, it was a symbolic gut punch. Farmers, the brand's bedrock, were turning away. Forums buzzed with guides on bypassing Deere software and independent repair coalitions formed. A generation that once wore John Deere hats now embraces resistance. In early spring, 72 Minnesota farmers filed a class action lawsuit accusing John Deere of violating repair restrictions and engaging in monopolistic practices. The complaint alleged that Deere's equipment was designed to be unserviceable by independent mechanics, forcing farmers into costly dealer-only repairs. But legal battles were just too slow for many. Farmers turned to technology, transforming online forums into hubs of rebellion. Membership in unauthorized repair communities surged by 300% in 6 weeks, with farmers sharing cracked software, diagnostic bypasses, and firmware unlockers. At the heart of this digital uprising was Green Ghost, an untraceable patch that bypassed Deere software locks, allowing farmers to clear fault codes and install parts without dealers. One Iowa farmer called it digital liberation. A gray market repair ecosystem emerged, with former Deere employees offering discrete services and part suppliers selling directly to farmers. What began as desperation became a full-scale resistance movement. The bombshell came from within. A leaked Dropbox link revealed 64 pages of internal documents titled "Revenue Enhancement Through Service Exclusivity." The 2017 slides outlined a deliberate strategy to monopolize repairs through software locks and proprietary tools. Former engineer Thomas Wilson confirmed their authenticity, admitting, "We didn't build for uptime, we built for margin. Simple failures, such as a $60 hydraulic sensor, were programmed to trigger system-wide shutdowns necessitating costly dealer interventions." Internal emails discussed exploiting farmers during high-stress seasons, with one executive noting, "If it fails in May, they'll pay by June." The document spread like wildfire, shattering trust. Farmers saw themselves not as customers but as targets of calculated exploitation. As Deere reeled, competitors pounced. Case IH launched its Open Farming initiative, offering full diagnostic access and unrestricted parts ordering. Kubota's Farmer First campaign promised open-source software, while Mahindra expanded its U.S. dealer network with a full ownership, half the cost pitch. Over 140 Deere dealerships began talks to switch brands, with 37 signing letters of intent. Farmers, folks of all people, farmers, flocked to these alternatives not just for equipment but for principle. The border blockade's ripple effects were honestly catastrophic. Nearly 1.7 million acres in Mexico remained unplanted, threatening winter vegetable supplies such as tomatoes, peppers, and avocados. Futures contracts for these crops soared, and U.S. food processors warned of ingredient shortages. Mexico's inspections weren't just about standards. They were an ultimatum, demanding right to repair policies, a reparations fund, technology transfers, and oversight of repair part pricing. Leaked diplomatic cables revealed a meticulously planned strategy to exploit Deere's market dependency. This isn't just about farming, it's about survival. The shutdown exposed the fragility of a food supply chain reliant on a single company's equipment. As farmers fight for control, the consequences ripple across economies and dinner tables. The rebellion is a wake-up call not just for John Deere, but for an industry that underestimated the power of those who feed the world. The question now is whether Deere can adapt, or if the farmers' revolt will reshape agriculture for generations.